recording for our YouTube viewers now. What's up, YouTube viewers?
What's up, YouTube?
We're just about to start this Facebook Live right now. Loading. Loading it up. And what's up, fight fans? Welcome to another episode of Stoner versus Stoner. What episode? Episode 24. We're about to do UFC 257 this Saturday coming up with Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. That's going to be a great fight. We got a fantastic main card, wonderful undercards as well. That whole card is stacked. Make sure you buy it this time. Uncle Dana White's coming for scalps, he says. He's going to be scouring for pirates, so don't look on your usual schmap streams or whatever streaming site that you might be using. They will probably not be running. I don't know if he's looking to do this for a usual thing or if it's just for his big fights like this, but it's important to keep an eye out. With me, as always, is my co-host, my co-correspondent, jiu-jitsu specialist, Don Stoner. Please tell the people.
What's up, y'all? Don Stoner over here. Co-host of Stoner versus Stoner, the not so better half of Stoner versus Stoner. Jiu-jitsu black belt. Jiu-jitsu black belt. Did some MMA, I teach at my school, Lone Wolf Jiu-Jitsu Academy up here in Washougal, Washington. Huge fight fan. And I always love calling the fights with my brother.
Yeah, Don and I are both huge fight fans. Don is, of course, the one that gives us legitimacy with his actual jiu-jitsu black belt and the fact that he teaches and competes on Submission Underground Grappling. You can see him. What, you did 5 matches in this past year?
Yeah, 5 matches.
Dude, that's huge. That's huge. That deserves the credit of at least mentioning it, the very least. I've done jiu-jitsu since I was about 12, on and off. I never really had the full commitment. Not very much gi grappling. Mine's mostly no gi. I started gi. Also did some judo in high school, kickboxing. Striking seems to be a little bit more my specialty as far as the math of it goes. I've pretty much asserted a position as somewhat of a striking specialist on the show, just because of the angling and such is something I obsess over, which we will be talking about today for sure, judging by the fights that we had just had. Let's go ahead and start with the list. On the main events, we had Hawaii boy Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic. Still can't say his name. Let's go ahead and see if I can do this video run while we do the podcast. So what did you think of this fight, Don?
Action-packed, action-packed. 2 up-and-comers, both had contender series wins, both had 1 win in the UFC. Punalele is just a powerful guy. Nothing, that's what you expect from Hawaiians, scrappy, very scrappy. And this is so cool. We can watch a fight.
Yeah, right? Yeah, comment as it's going.
Love this, bro.
Beefing it up. It's 2021. Time to step it up.
I don't remember this fight too much, so I'll kind of just watch it. What were your take? What's your take on this one?
So Dusko really came out showing some pretty interesting looks. He was really mixing it up pretty heavily on top and bottom striking, a lot of kicks as well as punches. His top sway movement's really efficient, but as you can see there, Punahele has really good timing. He covered a lot of ground. He kind of reminded me of Anthony Pettis against Wonderboy Thompson. He was able to really, once he got a good read on his opponent's lean, he was able to kind of overcompensate for that. So every time that he did a heavy lean, he followed it up with a second left hand. And like you see there, it landed with authority a lot of times. Punahele's left hand is like you said, it was a thing to be worried about in the fight. And Dusko was definitely worried about it. But as you can see, Worrying doesn't really matter when it comes to preparation. You could tell that Punahele was ready for him to have some type of adaptation to what his strengths were. So it looked like he found a way to double compensate. Um, yeah, I mean, the fight was, as we both thought, it was either going to be a knockout in the first 2 rounds or a decision in the third round um, Dusko, but it didn't go that way. It went the way I thought. I got the first pick. I picked this fight. I got the win. First one. First one, 2021. But this actually, on this card, we were back and forth. The fight after that, we had Joaquin Buckley versus Tachirigo. And we split that one. You actually got this one right. You saw this fight, right?
Yeah. Can we pull that one up?
I'm not gonna have a video up for the next two because those fights were so fast. The highlight reels are literally 30 seconds.
All good.
What you call this fight?
Yeah. What got me? What made me pick Di Treco, the Italian, was experience. I mean, he's had, I don't know, 7 or 8 fights in UFC. He's fought some really good guys. He's fought some really good strikers, explosive knockout fighters. And when you're an experienced fighter and you get an up-and-comer who's just kind of one-dimensional, it's really easy to make a game plan on that guy. And his game plan was kicks, and he played it beautifully. He saw the way that Buckley dips his head. He noticed sometimes Buckley will drop his left hand, came over with the right high round kick, clipped him on the top of the head, Mirko Cro Cop style, drops him, knocks him out cold. And I think this is the end of Joaquin Buckley's hype. Not the end of his career because he's young. He had the knockout of the year, or one of the knockouts of honorable mention. I can't remember if he got it or not. But, man, Di Treco now is a guy who's relatively unknown in the UFC. Now people know who he is.
Yeah.
How the UFC goes.
Really showed veterans patience in the fight with Joaquin Buckley. He came out very, very steady, very stable, very sure-handed. You could tell Joaquin Buckley was still feeling a little bit of that early octagon adrenaline dump, which can help or hurt you. I don't think it was too much of a factor. However, it's definitely visible. He had a little bit of the happy hands getting into the ring immediately. And, Destreco is really good at reading where the holes are in your game. He really found a smart opening in Buckley's defenses, utilizing his footwork. He saw down the pipe, he had a lot of room to work with. And he also noticed what I noticed from the footage that I was able to see, that Joaquin Buckley's head never left the center line when he was throwing his combinations. While Destreco's head, as he was throwing, he was leaning from left to right. Joaquin Buckley still stayed pretty hard on the center line. And that's something you want to kind of avoid, especially if you're a big striker, especially if you know that your opponent's looking out for your big strikes. That's something that you kind of, if they only have to weave 1 or 2 punches and just swing at the center line and they'll get lucky, it's something to look out for, but it's not luck. Definitely not with a fighter like Destreco. You were right on that choice. I was riding the hype train. I can't help it. You know me, man. Big
no
fish,
doubt.
Big bait.
No doubt, man. And there's something that happens to fighters too. Is when you get a spectacular knockout, you get $50,000 in your pocket. When previously you were making $500 to fight, now you get a check for $100,000 and you just knock somebody out. You're hungry for the knockout and you're thinking, man, I can knock out anybody in the world. Start to believe your hype. But when you go against an experienced fighter, you need to change your game plan up. The UFC is evolving every card. It evolves now. It used to be like every year. Now it's like every card we see new techniques, either new or, recycled, but we haven't seen it in years. We see people, because there's so many styles, man. I mean, if you look at boxing, you have Russian style boxing, you have the Mexican style boxing, you have there's so many, Czech Republic. I mean, there's so many different styles of boxing. You have American Western style boxing,
Chinese boxing.
That's only boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at kickboxing, Dutch kickboxing, Muay Thai kickboxing. You look at jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu. Really, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is dominant over all that. Let's be honest.
And then
But
you also have to mention 10th Planet on its own as a style of jiu-jitsu. I feel like that would be kind of like an American fusion style of jiu-jitsu.
yeah,
Just for the
if you
fact that
want to, yeah,
they've incorporated enough moves to consider itself as its own style of martial art, I feel like.
no doubt. But I'm not into wearing pink tights. That's another story. That's another story. I wear gis, my brother. I wear gis.
Yes, sir. I
But
like it. That's what I like hearing.
yeah, and then wrestling style, Russian style, American style. So the whole point with that is if you just come in off a knockout and you're just going to keep your same game plan, man, think about how many styles people can study to offset that. So Di Chireco simply said, okay, I know this guy's going to Mike Tyson me, load up. I'll stick and move. I'll land kicks. I'll take a karate stance, and if Joaquin Buckley doesn't evolve and then say, okay, people are expecting my big hands, let me shoot in for a takedown, let me surprise him, then he's a flash in the pan.
Yeah, very good point. But like you said as well, Joaquin Buckley really does have a long career ahead of him. He's a young guy. He's created a lot of buzz for himself, so I'm not too worried about his future. As long as he doesn't take too many shots like that, he definitely shouldn't be doing that if he wants to keep a long career. After that, we had Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Zhang Lang Li, the Leech. I didn't have a video queued up for this one either. Shit. Which was a great fight. We both called it wrong. We both wanted Ponzinibbio to win. And man, the Leech really showed up. Lee really had really good cornering, really good trapping, really heavy presence. He really put it on him early and kept the pace high. Ponzinibbio was doing some great things to try to react, try to get out of the way, try to set up the game plan that he had kind of come out with. But the Leech really lived up to his nickname and really just sapped the energy out of him pretty quickly. That's why I didn't queue one up for this one either. It was only, a 4-minute fight tops, I think.
It was a fast fight.
It was a pretty fast one.
Yeah. To me, that was a fluke. I don't think that the better fighter won that night. I think the fighter with a better game plan, like you were saying, won that night. The Ponzinibbio for me is the more well-rounded fighter. I mean, he's shown it. His resume shown it. I mean, they're just talking about how he knocked out Neil Magny in that fight. In his fights, he's knocked out Gunnar Nelson, and he's fought the top ranked guys and beat them. Whereas Jialing Jialing, the Leech, he's a 50-50 fighter. He either comes out, dominates people, or loses, right? So he'll win one, he'll lose one. But it looked to me like Jialing just had a better training camp, had a better game plan, and caught Ponzinibbio. I think Ponzinibbio just wasn't warm because Ponzinibbio's career, he's a guy who fights 3-4 times a year, and he's been out of the game for 2 years. And that's really what I was concerned with, was how he would show up after that layoff. And we saw what happened. He came out cold. Maybe he didn't get a good warm up in, but he just got caught. And so he's going to have another fight. I hope he can turn around fast. Usually they can't after knockouts like that. But 3 months down the road, I hope he gets a fight again, and we'll see him against guys that are probably low rank. He's going to have to go down the rank because he was a top 10 fighter, maybe even top 5 at one point, or getting close to the top 5 at one point, with some of his wins. And then he got all this stuff happened to him. I think he got so many things happen.
He had some major injuries, and he also had a blood infection, which lasted with treatment a little over 8 months. And I think that's definitely something to consider, as well as the injuries and stuff. When you have something like staph or blood infection along the like, that really takes a lot out of your body, your muscle fibers, just every part of you as a human being. So a part of me is worried about what impact that has on his longevity at this point. Like he said, he fought nothing but heavy hitters, and to lose in the first round to to Lee is kind of surprising and a little concerning. But it could also, I think that really is going to be determined by both of their next fights. You know, whoever Lee fights next will probably see more of who he is as a fighter and where his gut check level is. And with Ponzinibbio, we'll see potentially if if that was just a little bit of ring rust, or if that's something that we should be concerned about as far as what's already been taken out of him. Because not only has he had those injuries and that blood virus, but he also fought wars in the UFC. All those fights were decisions for the most part, from what I remember, and all of them were just heavy hitting wars. So that takes its toll on the body as well. But we'll see. He's a great fighter. He's got great technique. I would really love to see him flourish again in the UFC. It'd be nice to see that. Up next, we have Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. Were you able to catch the majority of that?
Caught some moments in that fight.
Yeah, it was a long one. That was a long 15 minutes, man. Both fighters showed up to fight. Matt Brown really pushed it as hard as he could. He knew that Carlos Condit really does have a dominating presence in the ring. Got him with a good step over trip.
That was, for me, that was one of the best moments. I remember that one.
Yeah, to catch Matt Brown with something like that too is pretty humbling, I guess would be the best words for that. Matt Brown really wanted to take his head off the entire fight, but he wasn't successful. You could tell he was putting everything he could into his shots, and he actually thought he won the fight. I had it scored for Carlos Condit by 3 rounds.
Can we rewind that takedown again?
Sure. Yes, we can. With our technology. Look at this. So what would you call that?
Thank you, young Jamie. Man.
It kind of looks like a standing leg scissor if I were to call it anything, really.
Yeah.
Because he throws it in like a southpaw to orthodox switchover. Like when he's running into him, watch how he switches his legs and then throws it. So it almost causes like a leg scissor effect. I don't even know what to call that move. It's like a Muay Thai trip, but without really fully clinching.
Yeah, it's a Thai. It's definitely a Thai style takedown. It's definitely something that a longer fighter can implement, as opposed to a short guy like me with little stubby legs.
It reminds me of a sweep that you do from plum clinch. If somebody throws a body knee, you throw the same side knee to bump their hip up and to sweep them over to pull with the clinch as well. But to do it just barehanded like that without any type of clinch or anything, that's a pretty bold move.
It's pretty bold. It almost looks like maybe it's not like an actual technique, but it's something that just ended up working.
Mm-hmm.
Like for sure that back leg trip is something, but the way he changed his levels and got so low, I've never seen anybody do that before.
Well, he threw it from switching his feet out from orthodox. So he switched from right to left and then back to right. And then as he was switching that third time is when he threw the sweep in. So it was some good confusing footwork to set up for it too, to keep Matt Brown guessing and check the shoulder angles and stuff. That was a really good move on his part. After that, I mean, the piece de resistance. Mwah. I've been waiting all week to talk about this fight since it happened. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar.
Oy, oy, oy.
Do you want to start talking about this? Because I got a lot to say.
You know, the fight was just a masterpiece by Max Holloway. Volume, accuracy, angles, really just an overwhelming striking volume that he put on Kattar, which is what you have to do with Kattar, because when you sit back with Kattar too long and you give him some time, he sets up his shots. Kattar had some great shots in the fight, and Kattar was landing some great shots. One of the things I was wondering about is about Maxie's chin, but that was not even an issue in this. And he's so young too, even though he's been in some wars, he does some slight feints to kind of take the sting off of him. But Cater could not really land the punches that he needed to. Unfortunately, Cater did not mix up his mixed martial arts the way he did. He he only boxed the whole fight. He only boxed. You see him throw a kick right when I say that, but really he just only boxed the whole fight, and you can't do that with Max Holloway. That's how Volkanovski was able to beat him. Is he mixed in the takedowns, he mixed in the kicks, and a boxer trying to outbox Max Holloway, he was just overconfident in his boxing, and that really pissed Max Holloway off. And he's like, "You think you're the best boxer? I'm the best boxer."
I I hate to say I told you so. Oh man, did I call this fight from front to back? I said Max gonna wax him. I said,
Oh, the UFC blocked our video, bro,
oh, did it?
because it contains music, audio, or video that belongs to someone else.
Oh no.
This same thing happened to Joe Rogan, and then you stop the video. It's like, that never happened, UFC.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right, I'll remove that. We'll figure it out. Maybe I can find some way. So
Did you not get that post? I immediately got that from the UFC. It says the UFC blocked your video.
you see that? You see that? Dana White's coming for scalps.
There you go. Dana White, if you're listening, you bald bozo, I'm ordering the pay-per-view this card. So don't do this. We're trying to promote you. We're not trying to steal your money.
We're all promoting. None of us is making us money. We're not trying. We're just trying to get people to watch, get more involved in the MMA community. And we're all bald here. We're all bald men. Certainly, we can all come to an agreement.
Yeah.
That's so funny that he's already coming for it, man. The weekend hasn't even started, and he's already scalp hunting, literally.
Dana White, don't you think we have enough to worry about without you and your freaking goons on our podcast?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You're gonna affect our tribe of 2,200, 50 viewers, however many viewers we may have. You're gonna really try to take us away like that?
My brother in Israel watching, I'm so sorry. Dana White did not meet that.
So you say we're blocked. Does that mean that we're not broadcasting live anymore? What happened?
So it looks like we are back to live. I don't know how that works. I just know I got that notice that says it blocked your video. Your video matches 2 minutes and 5 seconds of the video owned by the UFC.
Gotcha.
So we either delete this video or submit a dispute, which I could easily submit a dispute.
Yeah, we're gonna dispute this shit.
Yeah,
so hard.
Talk about that off the air.
Dispute. Take it to the reels. No, that's fine. We'll be more careful in the future. I'll find a way to mask it in there. 2 minutes and 50 seconds, huh? That's what I'm working with.
Yeah. You remember you remember when that happened to Joe Rogan, right? I remember there was one podcast where like, wait, the UFC just blocked us or something like that.
Looks like they give no rights out. So that means we got to keep the clips short and sweet, or we got to show just little portions of it. Man, they're really just grinding us, huh? So anyways, I had this fight called. Did I know it was going to be a 43-50 or 42-50? I don't think anyone could have saw that coming. I'm pretty sure that breaks some type of record. As far as main events go, I don't think we've ever had a main event so one-sided. But man, Max waxed him, just like I said. It looked just like him against T-City. Remember when the hype happened about the pre-T-City fight? Everybody was like, Brian Ortega's the man. He's going to go in there. He's going to take the belt. And he didn't do shit. And no offense to Brian Ortega, T-City. He's a great fighter. But fighting Max after talking all that smack, that put him out of commission for 8 months.
Yeah. But to be fair, T-City's evolved a lot too. When you look at his last fight, I think that would be a different fight too.
I think
I'm not going to go and say that T-City's going to beat him, but that's a different fight now.
Well, I think Calvin Kattar will also become a better fighter after losing to Max, because that's what happens. Max has got that Midas touch. If he touches your face up with those gloves, you become a better person in life. It's it's kind of like the Hawaiian blessing. Most of the time when we get into fights, it's normally for human betterment, not for human destruction.
Mm-hmm.
So he's truly blessed. He's just touching them, and they're becoming better fighters afterwards. But I know that we're not going to see homeboy Calvin Kattar back in action for what he's medically suspended for at least 60 days with a broken nose. But it's going to be longer than that with them ribs, son. He got his body tore up from the floor up. I'm pretty sure on the fourth round, Max Holloway landed something around 30 unanswered shots against the cage. That's ridiculous. And the fact that he's able to take the damage is certainly admirable, but you don't want to run the Homer Simpson memes on it too. That's taking a lot of damage over a short period of time. Max Holloway breaking records with his landed over 290 strikes, threw over 680. Man, these are video game numbers. That's like playing UFC 4 and sitting on the controller and just racking up the punches and kicks. That's crazy output. Yeah, it's good to see that my analysis of this fight wasn't completely based on my love for Max Holloway.
No doubt, man. And that's like, now did T City got finished in that fight? I think, yeah, Henry Gracie threw in the towel.
Yeah, I think it was either Henry Gracie or the ref stopped it. Somebody called the fight
The
for
ref
sure.
stoppage. So that just shows how tough Calvin Kattar is to be able to stay in that fight. And he just kept throwing too, like even in those barrages, like you'd see him get 1-2 off, 1-2-3. But that was his weaknesses, and his downfall was he was only throwing 2 punches against a guy who's throwing 10 at a time. There's no way that you can win that fight unless he had a ground attack.
Well, there's a few things that he wasn't prepared for. Max Holloway did a really good job circling his jab hand, staying away from that power side for the first few rounds. Really kept it tight, really used his angling well to keep that outside angle. Didn't show him too much of the front when he was coming in. And Max fights like a mongoose. The way he comes in, throws in a few shots, and is ready to lean and move and roll with the punches, as you kind of described earlier about how he's able to just avoid damage. Just a really slick, almost Philly shell style of fighter mixed with really obscure leg attacks. He wasn't picking one specific angle. He was doing oblique kicks. He was doing inside, outside. He was going for it. He was really fighting from a flow state that he got in real early and really just kept the pace turning up in intensity, which is incredible because that first round already had me like, oh, yep, I was right. This fight's over. And then I had another friend I was texting. I'm not gonna lie. I was texting one of my buddies, and he was really heavily believing it was Kattar, and he's a Hawaii guy too. So,
no,
of course,
don't tell
the
me
whole
that.
time, so I'm like, brah, I'm telling you, Max is going to give him lickings. That's what we call it, lickings, dirty lickings. Lickings are what you get from your parent when you were a bad boy, and they don't even use their hand. They use a spoon or a belt or whatever's closest to them, and it's a one-sided ass beating where where your neighbors hear it. Your neighbors can tell you're getting lickings. And each round he would text me like, I don't know, man. Max normally fades in the third round. I'm like, lickings. Fourth round, lickings. And by the fifth round, he was finally like, yeah, dude, lickings. Holy shit. That was total lickings. That's
such a Hawaiian conversation, bro.
It's the best way to describe what happened that day. That was dirty lickings, Max Holloway. What you did, brah? Dirty lickings. Mean. We like it. Yeah, it was a fun fight to watch. And I mean, of course, that thrusts him immediately in the spotlight for a fight with Alex Volkanovski again, of course. Volkanovski's most likely going to fight somebody else first because that's what he's been saying. However, Dana White's like, who are you going to fight that isn't Max?
Well, he's going to fight T City next.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. So for sure, now after that performance that Holloway did, he's going to fight the winner of that.
Yeah, and I think Ortega is going to get starched.
I don't know, man. The matchup That's for me. That's a tough one, and I'm not a fan of T City. People know that by now, but the last T City that we saw, who did he fight? Who? Oh, Korean Zombie.
Yeah.
Where Korean Zombie couldn't do one thing, and T City came out with like 10 new techniques that night, which is unheard of for a fighter to evolve so much. You know, like people are talking about like Max Holloway's improved so much. Like, well, did he really? That's really the Max Holloway that we've always known. He didn't really come out with too many new techniques, but T City like really evolved his game. Like he's been faking the single leg coming over the top. He's working on his wrestling now, and he already has dangerous jujitsu. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to say that T City can beat Holloway, but I do think that it's a different game now with T City and also with Holloway. And I think that Volkanovski's going to have to take a level up now because these two guys have made leaps and bounds in their game.
I don't even know where I want to start to attack that statement. The fact that you just brush off Max Holloway breaking the strike record in a fight as I don't know if we really saw something new. We did see something new. We saw the most strikes thrown in a fight. That is something new. But I see what you're saying as far as the techniques go. Except for those elbows, you can't say we didn't see something new. Those elbows that he threw all fight long and gave Cater the split. That's brand new. He even talked about it where he was like, "Bro, I never throw elbows before. I throw them now." I'm like, "Bro, this thing's mean." He's stoked on the elbows. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if the next fight we see something even more new. Now
No,
that
I'll
he's
give
kind
you
of,
that, but there's a difference though when someone's giving you the takedown threat.
mm-hmm.
There's a big difference, like, and that's and that's why I feel like he wasn't able to do that with Volkanovski. For one, Volkanovski kicked the crap out of his legs. Like I don't know how many leg kicks he threw on Holloway, but it was enough to slow him down. And two, he also had the takedown defense, the takedown attacks on Max Holloway, where Qatar didn't have anything. That's a guy who's throwing 1-2 shots. Granted, yeah, he can knock you out at any moment, but that's a really easy thing for Max Holloway to turn up the heat on someone like that when they're not even trying to attack the takedowns because you can just freely throw. You're just throwing. One cool thing though they were talking about is Holloway hasn't been sparring. I really like that. I really, really, really like that because we were talking about his chin. So he's able to mitigate all the damage he's taken in fights with now not sparring. Super smart with a guy who's, I mean, Holloway's 28, but he's has so many fights. So it's a great move to not spar. And it almost was like he hasn't been able to spar, so he just wanted to let it out on somebody. And fortunately Qatar was that man.
Yeah, yeah. I think anybody who gets paired up with Holloway is never going to have an easy night. I mean, even the champ himself had 2 5-round grinders that are debatable in their call. Second one more so than the first one. So I think it's the smartest fight to make, but I mean, we'll see. Honestly, I think Max Holloway starches Brian Ortega if he fights him again. I really don't think Ortega has the tools to come back with it because we only saw one facet of Max's game in that fight. Had he pressured the takedown or attempted to run the clinch harder, he would have just seen the fighter in the featherweight division who, or I'm sorry, yeah, in the featherweight division who has the highest takedown defense percentage. Somebody who doesn't get taken down by people who are accredited specialists at it. I mean, it's not that Ortega didn't try. He just didn't really
True.
get the
But he
opportunity.
wasn't. Ortega's like the type of guy that like he won't try to take you down, but if you take him down, he'll submit you,
Mhm.
you know? And all, like you said, all the good wrestlers that Holloway's beat haven't had the striking that Volkanovski has. Because Volkanovski by no means is like a national level wrestler or like accredited wrestler. I mean, he's Australian. Let's be honest. I mean, Australia, they don't have wrestlers. I mean, they have some judo, they have some jujitsu. I don't think there's been an Olympic champion from Australia. Somebody's probably going to go on and pull some guy out of freaking 1980, but that's just what I'm looking at. It's like now with T City working his wrestling, it's a big threat because jiu-jitsu guy is something that like, Ortega knows wrestling already. He just hasn't used it. He hasn't unleashed those skills. Like he knows wrestling, he knows defense, and he knows offensive wrestling. He just hasn't drilled it. Now that he's drilling it, if he can put Max Holloway on his butt, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but between Holloway and Volkanovski, who has a better chance to beat? Between T-City and Volkanovski has a better chance to beat Holloway again. But like Khabib was saying, Holloway could be one of the greatest of all time now. Who knows, man? Who knows? It's really, it just really just sparks some new energy in the division. Like now I'm like this division's like for me like one of the best divisions now after seeing Holloway and T-City their last fights. It's really interesting.
I feel like nothing is going according to what the UFC had tried to plan. I feel like they saw kind of an angle in for some new talent to really shine, and I don't think a lot of the outcomes happened the way they thought they would, and that's something that makes me very happy. I love seeing underdogs and spoilers and things change. I love seeing this. This is something that I really enjoy. Is some chaos in the divisions. It's a scramble for the belts. This is the way it should normally be, because otherwise you just have one champ reigning and a bunch of people scrambling beneath the champ. And that's as fun as that is. If you don't have a champ that's exciting, I'm looking at you, Usman, then you're kind of stuck with just kind of this somebody that you're like, come on, somebody step in and beat this guy already.
Let's get rid of this guy.
What was that?
I said, let's get rid of this guy. Someone come in and whoop him.
Let's get something interesting, something to spice it up. Luckily a lot of the divisions have really exciting champions. We got Figueiredo. I'm not too keen on Alexander. He doesn't really say much. He's kind of quiet. But then we got the fight for belt with Peter Yan and Aljo also to talk about that going on. We got Snoozman, and he's fighting Gilbert Burns pretty soon. I believe they announced that's going to be a February main event card.
Ooh.
In March we got Ngannou and Miocic round 2, and the winner of that fight is going to fight John Jones.
Ooh.
That's what Dana White's been dropping some nuggets. I don't know if he's supposed to be talking about just yet, but that's one thing that a reporter nailed on during the Fight Island conversations. So it's something definitely have to talk about for that. What else is going on? Light heavyweight, we got Israel Adesanya fighting light heavyweight. I think that's supposed to be happening as early as like March. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
So who's fighting this weekend, man?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Don. I am so glad you asked. The main event, of course, the main fight, the one we've been waiting for, Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. Fights beneath that, we have Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler, Jessica Eye and Joanne Calderwood, Matt Favela and Ottoman Adzatar. I'm sorry. And one of my favorites on the card. You're not going to believe that this is my favorite on this card of all cards. But Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas are fighting. Ooh. That is going to be a war and fun to watch. I think a lot of people are sleeping on that fight because of the big ones at the top. But I think that one's going to be surprisingly exciting. What do you think of this card, Don?
It's going to be such a card, man. It's going to be such a card. Where should we start? From bottom to top or top to bottom?
Where are your favorites?
Man, well, you know where my favorite lies. You know my favorite, brother. That's a co-main event. That's a co-main event.
The Chandler.
That's all I care about. It's funny because people come over to my house and watch a Conor McGregor fight, and I'm like, who's fighting? And they say Chandler and Dan Hook. Oh, Michael Chandler, I'm there, my brother.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be an exciting one too. Dan Hooker, we talked about it a couple times already. We've been propositioning this fight, fantasizing about it, visualizing it, and now soon it's going to be manifested in front of our faces. Man, Dan Hooker with that wide stance, really susceptible to my move of 2021. I think Michael Chandler might pick him up with an ankle pick. I'm thinking that might happen right off the bat. I think that's going to be a big move. I think he uses it 2 or 3 times in the fight.
Ankle pick city.
Yeah, the more I watch Dan, the more I watch his highlights, the more I notice how wide that stance is and how that front leg really just creeps out there. He's a long body, so he's got a good stance as far as where his striking's at, but it does leave him susceptible to that ankle getting picked up. Yeah, I think I might be picking Michael Chandler on this one.
Oh, so
But
this for me is like the biggest fight of the year for me because it just shakes up the lightweight division, and it's like it takes the focus off will Khabib come back into, like, it doesn't really matter if Khabib comes back. Like, it does matter if Khabib has one more fight. Don't get me wrong, because he's like one of the best ever. But it makes it so, like, if Khabib comes back or not, it doesn't matter. This division is like the best division right now in the UFC. I mean, for one, Hooker, guy has an amazing chin. Really hard to finish. Right, trains with Izzy Adesanya, trains with Volkanovski, trains with all these animals, some other guys that are coming up from Australia that are really, really good, has the best camp, right? Chandler is a knockout artist, power in his hands, with some of the best wrestling I think is in the UFC right now. Like you mentioned, the ankle pick. We're talking about ankle picks, double legs, single legs. We're talking about a guy who can throw punches and come in off a takedown. We're talking about a guy who can take you down off his back foot when he's getting pounded. We're talking about a guy who will never give up, will never quit in the whole fight. He'll make it a dog fight. You have to finish Michael Chandler to beat Michael Chandler. Like, you literally have to knock him out cold to get him out of there. There's no way. You're not going to break his spirit. But then you look at other things like the knees that Dan Hooker has. The thing about we were talking a lot about the knees, right? The thing is, the knees are so obvious right now that I think that the knees aren't going to be an issue because it's so obvious. Dan Hooker's not going to throw as many knees as he normally does because he knows that Michael Chandler's been training for it. Michael Chandler is probably going to expect Dan Hooker to not throw as many knees because it's already been said, Dan Hooker, he needs to watch out for Dan Hooker's knees, okay? So I want to take the knees off the table right now and just say it's going to be a stand-up war for the first couple minutes. If Michael Chandler gets past the first round or two, with the first round, he's gonna grind him out. He's gonna grind Dan Hooker out. I don't see Michael Chandler knocking out Dan Hooker, although he is a great striker. I'm not gonna say great. He's not a great striker, but he can knock out anybody. He has a puncher's chance. He has power. So that's my prediction, really. If Hooker can't finish him in round one, Chandler's going to take him out. Now, we haven't talked about jiu-jitsu this whole time, and the jiu-jitsu side of things in the jiu-jitsu realm, that goes to Hooker, because he'll hook you. He'll fish hook you if he has to. He'll do whatever it takes.
He'll give you the oil check. That's more of a wrestler move, but exists.
Yeah, I could see Chandler oil checking him like Daniel Cormier has a fun time doing.
It's an uncomfortable move.
What are your predictions on that one?
Yeah, I originally wanted to say Michael Chandler, but I know you've been waiting so long for him. I'm gonna give you the Michael Chandler one. I think Dan Hooker is able to line him up with one of those knees. If Chandler does go for any type of desperate takedown, if he Askrens it in any way, Dan Hooker is not the type of dude to let you get away with that mistake. So I think he's going to be a little overzealous with the takedown, and I think Dan might catch him with the knee. So I'm gonna go with Dan. Second round knockout. That's my call. And you said three round decision, correct?
I think it's, yeah, 3 round decision. And that could very well happen too, man. I mean, Hooker, the range is a big thing too. Chandler's only fought one guy in Bellator that even resembles closely to what Dan Hooker is in size. It's a guy, Goichi Yamaguchi, a Japanese guy who's actually Brazilian. He hasn't fought many tall guys, with range. That can work for a shorter fighter, and then that can also work against a shorter fighter if Hooker utilizes his range well.
Mm.
The overhand right, Chad Mendes style, that's going to be a big thing that Chandler can use against Hooker. You know, um, but again, jujitsu, man. Chandler's one of those weird guys that's like he's not good at jujitsu. He gets stuck in he gets stuck in positions, but he like scrambles his way out, and he finishes guys like with chokes that shouldn't work. So that could be an X factor in this fight. But in any case, whoever wins that fight's gonna be lined up for the title shot. So we're gonna see one of these guys fight Poirier or McGregor.
Well, it's a big test for your boy. It's a big test for the one we've been looking at potentially to be one of the future contenders for the championship. I know I mentioned Ben Askren, but that's a name that's kind of not necessarily comparable. I wouldn't compare them in talent, but I would compare them in terms of mystique and buzz and hype, and we'll see where it goes. Because Ben Askren, don't forget, he had his first fight with Robbie Lawler and got tossed around a little bit, but still came out with the W. And then with Masvidal, of course, we saw what happened. And if you didn't see it, look up knockout of the year 2018. And then he fought, was it Maya?
Yeah.
Yeah, and got submitted. So he proved that even in the ground department that he wasn't relevant, and he left. And that was that. I hope the same thing doesn't happen to Chandler, but the fears are still there. I think everybody who's a fight fan is a little worried to hop on the Chandler Express because they're not sure what caliber of talent we're talking here. We've been hurt before.
Yeah.
We've been embarrassed in conversations before because we backed the wrong horse.
No doubt. Askren, as far as like the hype train and as far as like the similarities, they're totally true. But there's also a lot of big differences too because Chandler has striking. Askren and Chandler were on the same wrestling team in Missoula. They wrestled together, so they have the same wrestling prowess. Askren's a better wrestler than Chandler was. Chandler was a guy who walked on college, and he was just like a guy that's just like, yeah, okay, we'll take this guy. We don't think he's not that good, but he has a lot of heart. He's a hard worker. We'll take him. Whereas Ben Askren was like one of these kids that's been wrestling since he was 5 and just dominating his whole career. And they thought he was going to be an Olympian. Chandler's not that guy. Chandler was just a hardworking, scrappy guy. But when they got to MMA, Chandler decided to study striking and got really good at striking. So he's a totally different fighter in that sense. But in the sense of someone coming over from Bellator with a lot of hype, it's pretty close. And actually, Chandler's even has more hype, right? Because he's like immediately he's a title contender, right? Which pisses a lot of guys off. So he has a big chip on his shoulder, man. If Chandler doesn't perform, it might be his only fight in the UFC if he gets Jorge Masvidal like that.
Well, there's a couple people pissed off. There's Dan Hooker, who's pissed off because he's had to fight to just bob and stay afloat in that top 5, top 10 position. You got Tony Ferguson in the mix, who's possibly getting bumped out of the top 5 rankings from him if he wins. You got a good handful of people that are like, hey, what about me, motherfucker? Like that's my spot. But it's going to be a big fight for him because if he loses, there's no telling to how far in the rankings that could drop him. He might, if he loses to Dan Hooker, he might be forced to start with like I hate to make a WWE reference, but the Brooklyn Brawler. He might have to start from the bottom of the weight class and work his way up a little bit and see where he lies. Because Uncle Dana wants every last dollar that kid's worth. He paid fair money for him, and he wants to make sure he gets the full contract. But we'll see. Like I said, huge test. Dan Hooker's a great introduction to the ring for sure. I'm excited for the. Oops, I lost my fight. Where'd I go? I'm really excited for the Marina Rodriguez Amanda Ribas fight, just because we have two different types of grinders in that match. Marina Rodriguez is known for her vicious striking, her cornering, really aggressive footwork, really vicious to get into any type of clinch battle with or anything. And Amanda Ribas is one of the sweetest people in the interviewing whatsoever. I don't know if you remember her interview, but she's the guy that's like, "Oh yeah, I'm happy to be here." Like really super friendly, really super affable, huge star potential, but she really does have a full plate with Rodriguez there. So I think that fight's going to be a surprising one. It could swing either way. I don't even know if I have a prediction for that one quite yet. I'm gonna have to make one soon. Matt Frivola and Ottoman Azatar, I don't really know too much about. Ottoman sounds familiar. It was shoot, that's right. He's that Moroccan undefeated dude.
He's an animal.
Yeah, he is. I feel like we're both gonna pick him, right?
Who's he fighting?
Matt Frivola.
Frivola's no slouch, man. Frivola's no slouch. I think Frivola has more UFC fights. Frivola's more experienced. And although I did the last Ottoman Azazar fight was pretty devastating. He just ran through that dude. I have to see Frivola's record.
8-1-1. The same age, same height, same reach. And Frivola is orthodox. Azatar apparently switches.
Matt Frivola, the Steamroller. Love that name.
Looks like he's got mostly submission victories under his belt.
Okay, so he's more of a grappler. I'm gonna go with Frivola on this.
Oh wow, yeah. I don't know. After I saw with Ottoman, maybe a new hype train is born. Who knows? You know me, I'm always looking for my next one. And since Joaquin Buckley just let me off on the last stop, or at least the last stop for now, I think, I'm gonna go with Ottoman Azatar there. Undefeated, all knockouts. Definitely. I'm definitely going with Ottoman Azatar in that one. And oh man, I'm still trying to think of the one before it, the ladies fight. Oh man, it's such a tough one because they're literally two of my favorite fighters in the division. I want to go with Amanda Ribas just because of her star potential and me being the hype machine that I am.
Who's her opponent, dude?
It's Marina Rodriguez, Brazilian striker, super aggressive, attacks the legs, great clinch. I try to remember who she fought last. It's been a little bit, but she is an animal and she's a gangster. She's a gangster animal. She's scary as shit, man. But I'm gonna go with Amanda.
Rodriguez lost to Carla Esparza. Okay, right. Now I remember her. And then she drew with Cynthia Calvillo. She beat Tisha Torres. She beat Jessica Aguilar. It's tough, man, because Ribas beat Paige for one. I think she also beat Mackenzie Dern, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure that was
right. She beat Mackenzie Dern. She beat Ronda Marcos. She's on a tear right now.
Did you just say she beat Ronda Marcos? Did you really have to say that?
That's your girl, brother.
Dude, that's like saying she got a slushie before a movie. That's like, yeah, no duh.
Yeah, slash you. She got popcorn in a movie, huh? Look, I'm gonna go with Marina. Let's make this interesting.
All right.
Marina Rodriguez.
Man, you're gonna make me regret my pick because I love them both. It's I love
Let's
them
do
both.
this.
But yeah, I think both calls are good. After Adnan Nazatar and Matt Frivola, we've got Jessica I and Joanne Calderwood.
Okay.
Ooh, that's gonna be a good one too. I think I would go with Jessica I in this one though.
Yeah, that's any ladies fight.
Yeah.
I'll take Calderwood. I'll take Calderwood on that one.
Calderwood's a scrappy one. She likes to push the fight and make sure it makes it all the way to the end of the fight. Jessica I mean, she earned her spot. She got laid out by a champ, but she earned her fight with the champ before getting laid out by her. So, yeah, I think Jessica I is going to push to get a victory on this one. Joanne Calderwood is, like I said, though, she is scrappy. She pushes the pace in an awkward way and really makes it a tough night for anybody who's looking for action. Uh, like I said, good choices all around for that one. So we already did the Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker. It's time to talk about it. Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor. Who you got and why and when and how?
This is one of those that you can't just jump out with a prediction, you know.
Again.
It's another situation where it's similar to the Chandler against Hooker situation that I was talking about, the fight. You know, it's I think that you look at their previous fight and you look at what Dustin Poirier was talking about, the struggles that he had in that fight. He just wanted to finish everybody. He just wanted to steamroll everybody. The hype got to him, but the leaps and bounds that Dustin Poirier's made in the time that Conor's kind of had one or two fights, Poirier's really evolved his game, and wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing. He's even made strides in boxing. Whereas Conor's more like really, really good at boxing, pretty good at jiu-jitsu, had some good wrestling defense against Khabib because that's all he worked during that camp. But I feel like in this fight, there's too much for Conor to worry about. Where it seems like for Conor to win, he really has to bank on knocking Poirier out. Because it seems like with Khabib, he knew like all he had to do with Khabib is stop his takedown. Yeah, it's an impossible feat, but that's one thing that he had to worry about, right? Maybe a little bit on the submission side, but it's different with Poirier's, where it's like, okay, now I need to work kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, because Poirier can out wrestle Conor, no doubt. If those two are in the wrestling room, Poirier's taken down Conor 10 out of 10 times. If those two are in the jiu-jitsu room, Poirier will probably beat him 7 out of 10 times. I think Conor could like stop the submission, but Conor couldn't necessarily submit Poirier. Boxing, Conor will win probably, who knows, half of the time. Kickboxing, though, when you add kicks in it, is different, right? So I'm going to say if Poirier lasts, I'm going to go with Poirier, but Poirier has to get past round one, no doubt. He has to get past round one because Conor's whole thing is he wants to knock him out in 60 seconds. Poirier has to get past round one. The way he's going to get past round one is keeping the distance. He has to keep the distance. He has to stay away from Conor. He has to land some kicks. He can't get caught up in the hype. He can't get like too emotional. And I think that he's now evolved to the point where he's not going to get too emotional. So I'm going to say Poirier wins this one via decision, and he completely dominates Conor in rounds 4 and 5. That's it.
I think Conor McGregor wins by knockout within 2 rounds, and for the same reason, for the inverse reason of what you said there. You think Dustin Poirier needs distance. I think the complete opposite. Distance is what killed him in their first fight. If you watch the first fight, Dustin wasn't aggressive enough to close the distance. He wasn't timing the front step of Conor McGregor to close the distance. That's the most important thing about timing Conor McGregor is he moves so fast back and forth constantly with his side hop that it's really hard to test his jab speed or his jab step. You know, a lot of times when somebody bounces a little bit more rhythmically or a little bit more loosely, you got a little bit better of idea of when a good time to strike is. With somebody like Conor, he lives on the balls of his feet and he's always moving. So you never really get a good timing approach. Uh, Dustin Poirier, I think his best motive would be to get close to him and close the gap. But we saw with Dad Cerrone what happens when you close the gap too quickly, and too sloppily with him. Conor McGregor showed us a new trick with that shoulder buff he started using in the clinch. Really interesting move. He allowed him to get double underhooks and just started jacking him with the shoulder. And the first two of them were kind of laughed off, but you could even tell by the commentary booth after he hit him with 3 or 4 of those, you could tell that Donald Cerrone was really disoriented. And that's just one little tactic that he throws in there. So maybe even distance isn't the thing that Poirier wants to close either. I think what we're going to see here is a big pace difference. Dustin Poirier is a slow starter at times. That was also the downfall of the first fight with Conor McGregor. So that means that either he's going to repeat that or he's going to try to do the inverse of that, which I think would be way more dangerous of him. I know he's already said on interviews he wants to make it a 5-round fight and make it a dirty one, make it a long one, make them both bloody and at the end. But I just see Conor McGregor out angling with speed. His lateral movement is ridiculous. I was afraid that might have lost a step in the past year of being off, not fighting, only doing boxing and stuff. But what I saw with Cerrone, I'm still convinced he's one of the best strikers to ever grace the sport. So I'm gonna go with McGregor within 2, and not because I don't like Dustin Poirier. I love him. I love his attack. I really like his work ethic and his pacing. But Conor McGregor is he's just a different beast. That's what I think. I mean, we'll see. I love second fights because both fighters that had enough information on the other fighter to at least devise some type of new game plan. So it's really exciting to see.
I'll give you that. I would, now what you're saying about the first fight, it's true, right? Poirier backed up too much and gave him too much distance. So Poirier needs to be very calculated with his clinches, like what you pointed out. The shoulder strikes with Poirier, I think will be a little different because if Poirier gets the clinch like that, I think Poirier has better ability to drop for the double leg and take down Conor. So we might actually see Conor circling out and moving away a little more in this fight. So if Poirier's best chance is going to be in round 1 and 2 to put Conor against the fence, take him down, wear him down, get some good body shots, tire him out, let him know that it's a different Dustin Poirier in there, and then wear on him and get past those first couple rounds. Conor can knock anybody out in the whole fight, 5 rounds. He can knock you out in 5 rounds, but statistically, it happens in the first couple rounds.
Yeah,
unless you're Chad Mendes.
And first of all, I'd like to say that there's no way that shoulder attack shit's gonna work ever again. That's done. That was a cool trick. That's not working again.
Well, it works when the guy's 6'1" and you're 5'5", right?
Mm-hmm.
It's different. It's different when they're both the same height.
Or when you allow someone to just straight up get double underhooks, because then they literally force themselves to that height, which is a really smart way to set it up and lock them into the position, because the importance of it is the multitude of it. It was the fact that it was multiple strikes at a rapid pace that jarred his equilibrium. But yeah, the what I'm seeing here is that there's no way for Dustin Poirier to win if he doesn't walk through Conor McGregor's minefield. There's no way for him to circumvent Conor McGregor's talents, and that's why I think it's a bad matchup for him. Because the reason people like Khabib um, are able to get to him is because they never really have to wade through the storm of the minefield. Conor McGregor is so focused on the takedown because Khabib's takedown is something that's a huge threat. That every little slight elbow movement he sees, he's looking to sprawl, and that really gives Khabib some opportunity striking wise. Had Khabib not had the threat of the takedown, he would have never knocked down Conor McGregor with a punch, ever, ever, ever. That would not happen in a boxing match. In a boxing match, Conor McGregor would kick the shit out of Khabib, and in a pure wrestling match, Khabib would just dog shit all over Conor McGregor. We all know that.
No
Um,
doubt.
but with
No
his
doubt.
mix of technique, using true mixed martial art, that's the way that Khabib was able to knock him down with striking.
Yeah.
Much like Conor's shoulders, though, I don't think that ever happens again. I think
Hmm.
Khabib saw the footage, he saw what I saw, and I'm just some Joe Schmo jerk off. He knows what he's looking at when he sees it. So,
Yeah.
some of these moves you can only use once or twice, and then people just like, oh, remember that.
Yeah. No doubt. Remember that time that guy got shouldered in the face?
Mm,
Yeah. It's Poirier's a really good wrestler. Poirier is a really good wrestler. Another thing too that we haven't talked about is now it being at 155. I think gives Poirier a lot of confidence because he's been so dominant at 155. Whereas McGregor's the type of guy who's been super dominant at 45, had a couple fights at 55, and then had a fight at 70, and then went to boxing. Whereas Poirier's like dominant at 55, the same way that Conor was dominant at 45. And I think that's really gonna give Poirier some extra heat. That's gonna make it a totally different fight. I think it's gonna be a totally different fight, you know, and who knows? Because again, Conor can time it. Mystic Matt can come back and say, "I'm gonna knock him out with an uppercut that nobody saw coming, but he saw it coming." But I agree with you totally. It's like Poirier needs to clinch him, get close, dirty boxing against the cage, take him down. Poirier is a better wrestler. There's no doubt in my mind. Poirier is a way better wrestler.
agreed.
Yeah.
Definitely agreed. Yeah.
So let's
But
see it.
yeah, it's a good fight. The matchmakers had a handful, and like you said, Dustin Poirier is a true 155. He's a big 155. I remember when Max Holloway went up to meet him at 155 to try to champ. I remember looking at Dustin and being like, "Dang, he looks big." Like, "Oh no, Max, don't, no, it's too late." Uh, but you know, like I said, there's no way for Dustin to implement his strategy without walking through Conor McGregor's minefield. And that for me is a statistical thing. I look at that and I go, okay, well, what are his chances of navigating that minefield? And they're worse earlier in the fight than they are later in the fight. Versus Dustin Poirier's approach, he's got higher risk of losing earlier in the fight, but as the fight goes on longer, he has that higher potential of turning the tide or seeing the available opening or the pattern. But man, is he going to have to endure a lot to really break through that point. And but if there's anybody who's the guy to do it, it's Dustin Poirier. That dude's got fight and he's got
Yeah.
heart, and he really wants to redeem that loss to Khabib. So I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls some Rudy shit and stays in there for 5 rounds and makes it a messy one. I just think Conor McGregor finishes it pretty quickly. I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to expect a long fight, and we're going to get an early fireworks display just because of the angling, the speed, and the fact that everything that Dustin Poirier has to do is directly in front of him. And that doesn't really spell good news for most opponents against Conor McGregor. But
You know, Poirier's, I mean, Poirier, again, the thing about Poirier too is you look at, those two different things that could happen in the fight, and anything can happen in the fight, right? But you look at Poirier's rise in 155-pound division, and I mean, he beat Gaethje, he beat Eddie Alvarez, who Conor also beat. They beat a lot of similar opponents, but if Poirier can take a page out of Khabib's book and put Conor on his butt, we don't normally see Conor get taken down and dominate on the ground and then do well after. You don't normally see that. You see Conor keep the fight standing and then he wins the fight. It's really hard for Conor if guys start taking him down. When they win that mental battle, he starts to go down in the fight. That's why he lost to Nate Diaz the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he lost to Khabib, right? So, and they both know the same thing. Conor's like, I can't get taken down by Poirier. Poirier's thinking, I got to take this guy down. So it's like you said, can he get past the minefield? That's the question that we need to know.
And that's what we're going to find out this Saturday. I can't wait. Make sure that if you are watching it, you are buying it or staying at somebody's house who's buying it. Uncle Dana's coming for scalps. And as you can see just from this episode, he means business. He's not handing out referendums. He's coming for your house, bro. You better hope you're renting. So make sure that if you can, you order it on ESPN Plus through their pay-per-view system. Most of the fights will be still going through ESPN Plus as well as ABC now, which means we're going to get a bunch of casual fans pretty shortly. So make sure you continue to tune into Stoner versus Stoner, where we can give you actual breakdowns of fights instead of that bubblegum cookie cutter garbage of people saying, oh man, he's a great fighter. What a great match. This was great, great, great. We'll actually give you some breakdowns and some footwork stuff and things to talk about. Oh, one thing we did miss, Michael Chiesa and Neil Magny had a 5-round fight. It was a long one. It's kind of boring. Michael Chiesa ran away with that one, utilizing his takedowns. But Magny did something dope that I do want to talk about. If you're fighting somebody who is is orthodox and if they're a southpaw and you're orthodox and they're peppering you with jabs, one of the best things you can do is throw that front hook right over the top of that jab. The jab might still hit, but it's just a jab. Just make sure you lower your forehead and you throw that left hook in, and it gauges perfect distance. That arm space that they do with their jab really gives you a good idea of where their chin's going to be. Neil Magny really personified just perfect textbook Muay Thai striking. Just thought I'd share a little tip with you if you're training. Don, where can our listeners find you?
Find me at dstoner_LWJJ.
And you can find me at Chino Bra for all of your favorite social media outlets. Also, if you're on Oculus, the VR headset, you can find me at Chino Bra. Anything you want to say before we close it out, Don?
That's about it, man. Stoked for the fights. Hope everybody has a good one.
It's going to be great fights, you guys. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you tune into Stoner vs. Stoner next Wednesday. We'll be talking about the fights that happen this Saturday and the ones that are coming up next Saturday. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. We'll see what's going on. Enjoy the fights. And as always, aloha.